until they're 30, 40, or 50, or we may see it manifest much earlier. But children that are abused, sexually abused, physically abused, other things happen at a young age, and it can really, it will impact how they behave as they age out. And I always tell this story. We offer grief, trauma, different groups, and she was in a woman was in a peer group, and late 30s, and going through the process, and peers are sharing and everybody's sharing, and she starts sobbing. And she was just then recalling physical and sexual abuse she suffered when she was a preteen. So I know it makes a difference. She was highly addicted, got into that. By the grace of God, she got through the programs and worked through. She really did well with her peer mentoring and has been very successful. So I know the services work. I believe in the research. I believe in what we know about working with offender-based target high-risk populations. So all those things are in there. I couldn't be happier than I am with our collaboration with CAPS. Lori Blake and her staff are amazing, so we would always shoot for that. And the total for all these grants is $973, $888.23. It's so funny, I obviously get mixed up. I don't touch that money, so it throws me off. So these have been in front of the advisory board. They have been back in Ottawa County yesterday, and I'm asking this board to approve the chairman to sign and move it on so we can get it to the due date of KDOC by May 1st. I do want to say that it didn't have, well, in one of these applications, it only had the host county. I don't find that to be the best way to build relations because we are the 28th district, which is Ottawa and Saline. So I did have their chairperson sign. Our chairperson will need to put his signature wherever there is a line available and a date, please.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by commissioners? I will state the fact that I know that you meant $973,000 instead of $973.
I fumbled it because, like I said,
I know.
I don't even touch that. You know,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
lovely money,
Okay.
but I couldn't. It's so much I can't even talk about it.
Okay. But
But
any
you're
other
right.
members of the public would wish to speak? I will bring it back to the commission for more discussion or possible action.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve by signature the fiscal year 22 Juvenile Justice Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 158-21 FY22 Juvenile Justice Comprehension Plan. Are there any further comments? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss?
Aye.
Commissioner Vidrickson?
Aye.
Commissioner Shadwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks? Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
RFA 159-21, fiscal year 21 third quarter adult budget adjustment. Annie Grievous, Community Corrections Director.
Thank you. This happens some, not as often as, thank goodness, but because of COVID and lots of shutdown all over, we did not do overtime services and some other things that we would have expended salary and benefits on were not done. So this does not change the bottom line in any way. You can't get more money and you can't take less. It is moving money from one line item to another where we are lacking in that line item. So the first one is personnel to contractual. Contractual are the dollars that we spend on client services. We're moving $3,500, and it's in the behavioral health category, so it's in the severely mentally ill section. We're going to move from personnel to training, $2,000 for the adult staff. because everything was shut down, virtual learning and education was wide open, and staff spent hours. First, they spent hours doing mandatory KDOC training. Then they enlisted themselves to reach outside of Kansas and learn from the states that are showing some real promising results in the things that we're interested in, the behavioral health and expanding collaboration and doing all of those things. And then the last one is personnel. We want to move to $28,000 to client services. Again, services for the clients to avoid them from going or having unsuccessful interactions, consequences. And so you all know that our services range from the simplest thing of transportation to the highest probably thing of rent and taking care of that family with medical assistance and other things. We really work hard to not allow the clients to use the ER as their primary physicians. That's very costly to somebody. Somebody pays for that, taxpayers, us, maybe in our insurance. I don't know exactly how that plays out, but that is their first response because they don't have primary physicians nor health care. And so we set them up at the Salina Family Clinic, give them a blue card, and then we also pay for that medication and some of those assistances until they can get stable and back on their feet to do that themselves. So those are a lot of those kind of dollars that go. So we are asking to move $33,500 from those line items of personnel over to the contractual client services and training hours or training line items. And again, I talked about a lot of it's due to COVID. There was so much shut down. We also had less cost because the county gives us insurance premium holidays. And when we project cost of insurance, those aren't in there because we just don't know if one day those will go away. So we always project. So we had remaining dollars that way also. So those dollars allowed us to have those extra in personnel. Typically we would not, but grateful that we do. So I'm asking this board to allow the chair to sign. It did go in front of our advisory board last week and it was approved. We do not have to have Ottawa County do that. It's just the host sponsoring county to get approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? Any members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to commission for more discussion or possible action.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the request for the third quarter adjustment as presented by staff.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 159-21, fiscal year 21, third quarter adult budget adjustment. Any further comments? If not, I will call for the vote. Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss?
Aye.
Commissioner Vidrickson?
Aye.
Commissioner Shadwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks? Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank
you,
you
Annie.
very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to leave these to be signed
Okay,
right here.
all right.
And I know Linda will get them to me. She's a superstar. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a great day. At that time, we will move into informational items.
One more item.
Mr. Chair, we have one more.
Oh, excuse me.
Kind of an important one, sorry.
Yeah, that a most important one. Yeah, item number 6.
RFA 160-21, closing on jail property. Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Mr. Chair, I know why you skipped over this because it seems like we've already done this, right?
Yes.
Back on December 15th of 2020, your commission did approve a contract to purchase just under 18 acres of land in North Salina for the purpose of constructing a new county jail and sheriff's facility. That contract was contingent upon two things. One was an environmental assessment of the ground, which was completed in January and no issues found. The second thing was permission from the city of Salina to actually build a jail on that land, because that land was not properly zoned for a jail. It was zoned industrial, and industrial zoning does not permit correctional facilities as a principally permitted use. So we have worked extensively with the city of Salina over the last several months. As you know, we came before this body and had you sign for an application for a planned development district to rezone the property to public use, public facilities. You know that we also had a vacation of a street right-of-way that runs through that particular piece of property. The vacation of the right-of-way was approved on first reading by the city previously, and they held the second reading until we submitted the plan for development of the parcel. That occurred, and this went through the Salina City Planning Commission earlier in April. There was unanimous support. There was no public opposition. The city did, of course, notice this, and there were no comments received. And so last night, about 7 p.m., the Salina City Commission approved 2 ordinances on first reading. The first ordinance amends their land use, future land use designation on this tract from an employment area to a public, semi-public area. The second ordinance rezones the land from industrial to the planned development district. Both of those items were approved 3-0 with 1 commissioner absent and 1 commissioner recused. I will let your commission know that both of those, because they are ordinances, they do require a second reading at the city. So if you chose to, you could delay closing by a week to make sure that happens. But since there was no opposition and they were approved unanimously, I feel comfortable in recommending that we go ahead and close on the property at this time. The closing statement has been received, and I do need to let you know we got an amended closing statement late last week. There were an additional $2,310 in expenses. So the final amount, rather than the $491,657.03 that's in your RFA, the final amount is $493,967.03. And then adding in the payment to the farm tenant on that ground, I have a total check for land title in the amount of $505,079.03 that will be presented today, subject to your commission's approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions, comments from the commissioners?
Well, I have one, and it's bothered me from the outset, and that is the payment to the tenant. And I'd like you to explain that to me a little further. It's my understanding that it's to cover the cost of his crop. We're not going to break ground until October, but wheat harvest is in June.
Yes, sir, that is correct, but we will need to have access to the property before we break ground. We'll go out there and be doing staking and other sorts of things that we think will effectively prevent him from getting a harvest this year. And so this is something that County Councilor Mike Montoya negotiated with that gentleman.
So the tenant will not be harvesting any crop on there whatsoever?
That's correct. So this, as soon as we close on the property, we will have possession of it, and he will be off of there.
Okay. Any other comments?
With that being said, that question brought up, will there be a harvestable crop available for the county then? Or will it be a wasted crop?
I would guess that it's going to be a wasted crop. Like I said, I know we will need to be going out there and doing some pre-work on the property prior to breaking ground, and there are 3 additional borings that we want to do on the property, some other soil testing and that sort of thing. So there might be some parts of it that could be salvageable, but I think for the most part it'll be a wasted crop.
Well, I'm just a tad skittish about putting our John Hancock to the papers prior to the second reading. I guess I will put my faith in what you believe to be that there won't be any hiccups here, that second reading will take place, because I look for it to happen. I agree that I'm 99% sure that it's going to happen, so I'll trust the administrator in that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your skittishness, Commissioner, and if there were any hint of opposition or, any split votes on this, I would not be recommending this, but this, I think, this is something that the voters approved, and I think that the city understands that that this is something that needs to go forward, and I don't see a problem, but certainly if the commission wanted to wait a week, I just I feel like we've been in this property transaction for over 4 months now, and so the sooner we can have access to the land, I think we'll be able to get out there and start doing some things to move the project forward. But one week won't kill us one way or the other.
Okay. Any members of the public who wish to speak?
Yes, Norman Mantle. This ties in with this heritage area issue. What has been raised at these meetings, whose property is this? There are no records going backwards past 1861. There is a claim against all this land. And I asked this person that was presenting at this meeting, I says, will this appear before the Supreme Court? And he hesitated and hesitated. He says, I hope not. Because the Native Americans have a claim against this property. This property has never been paid for. If you go back to 1803, the Louisiana Purchase, we don't have a clear title to this land.
Okay, very interesting. Any other comments?
Well, I will chime in with Commissioner Weiss just a little bit. I'm reluctant just a hair to not delay this 1 week, but that's on one hand. On the other hand, our administrator has pretty well put his stamp of approval on this, and I like to not get in his way of when he's running the business here, which is what he's doing. And that having been said, that I will move we authorize the chairman to sign the closing documents and approve the payment to the tenant as presented in RFA 160-21.
Second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 160-21, closing on jail property. Are there any further comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss?
Aye.
Commissioner Vidrickson?
Aye.
Commissioner Shadwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, thank you. We will move into now informational items.
Department of Senior Services update, Rosie Walter, Senior Services Director.
Good morning,
Morning.
Rosie.
Good morning. My update is through January through March 2021. I'm going to go over the accomplishments. Match Madness 2021 was held virtually again this year by the Greater Salina Community Foundation. They raised a total of $406,395.86 with 2,481 donations. Our donors. So Meals on Wheels, from all that, we received $5,531.34 in donations and prizes for a total with the match, because they match 50%, $8,337.01. And then the senior services account, we have two accounts with them. We've raised $1,550.60 in donation and prizes for a total with a match of $2,355.90. This is an increase for Meals on Wheels of $2,267.68 and $284.20 for senior services compared to 2020, the fundraiser. Meals on Wheels for Pets. We received a grant from the Greater Salina Community Foundation for $4,219 for the cost of the pet food supplies. I also want to tell you that the Bank of Tesket right now has contacted me, and they're doing a fundraiser for pet food through the month of April. So they're coming over Friday to present all of that food. So we'll do some pictures and such. We also had a fundraiser that the Lincoln Park Manor Home Health in the month of March, and they raised a total of $460 and a ton of different pet food supplies, food, cat food, dog food, treats. We had different site locations where food was donated. Long MacArthur participated, Kindred Hospice, Kenwood View, and Petals Flowers.
Wow.
Ambucks, the men's breakfast group for the month of March, they have come every single Friday. We have served them breakfast starting at 6 a.m., and this was just a trial period. They are looking at different locations to have a permanent home for their Friday breakfasts. So they are not with us this month, and we should hear hopefully in this next month or so if they're going to pick senior services. And if they do, I'll come back with a contract, and hopefully we can get that going. I had two different interviews this quarter. Strictly Salina, we did the TV station with Brenda Gutierrez, and we discussed the pet food fundraiser and our continuing need for volunteers to deliver Meals on Wheels. I also did Eagle Radio with Dave Four, and we again discussed the pet food fundraiser and my need for volunteers for Meals on Wheels. Right now, I'm actively looking for different proposals or specs on the Meals on Wheels drive-through so that we can complete our grant for this next cycle here. We do have a meeting with our subcommittee on Friday, and we will review those and then hopefully get a grant process started here pretty quick. Volunteer needs, I'm going to always say that, because of the COVID, our population for Meals on Wheels is huge, and I do need volunteers, so I will continually, actively pursue that. Budget update, the revenue, expenses, and the average daily population. I did a comparison January through March, so you could see from 2021 to 2020. So revenue, there's a difference of, we've raised $16,624.37. And on the back page, it'll kind of give you a breakout of where those dollars came from 2020 to 2021, January through March. It's so early in the year, it's really kind of a hard thing today. I mean, we're just through the first quarter. Expenses, the same thing. Last year, at this point, we had spent $141, $151, and $14. This year, we're at $124, $228, and $88 for spent less, $16,928 and $26. Again, we're too early in the year to really tell that. One thing I will say is that the cost of food has gone up dramatically, so our food costs are going up, and I will review that with Phil. Average daily population, I did a comparison again for that first quarter from 2020 to 2021, and you can see the difference between the dining room full pay, the subsidized, the Meals on Wheels full pay, subsidized, and Sunflower, which is our contract company we provide food for Monday through Friday, lunch. And then Reflections, who, the contract is not, we are not providing that. Used to be McCall Manor, but we're not actively providing, but they still are on the stats. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments by commissioners?
Rosie, I applaud you on all the different avenues of revenue seeking that you've gone out and grants and so forth to get this. However, there's one here that troubles me a little bit, and I think we're walking a slippery slope with the Ambucks Men's Breakfast Group, that we are opposing potential private enterprise here in Salina. I don't want to get into the competition of catering and taking that business away from,
I understand.
a governmental agency taking the business away from the private sector. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but that, to me, that's, we're looking for trouble there.
They are a not-for-profit agency. The Ambucks are. So, I just felt like they were probably.
I know, but they're spending money, that they would normally spend at whatever, IHOP or where, I don't know where they've been getting, I do know where they've been eating their breakfast, but they've moved around a little bit. I understand that they want to get the best breakfast they can for the least amount of money, and they are a great organization without a question. I'm just saying that Saline County, I'm not sure we should be competing for that business. That's what I'm saying.
I agree. And one other thing on that, we have not been in the breakfast orientation up till this point, have we?
No, well,
So
we're opening up early for them, so they could try us out.
Okay.
Typically, I don't open up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
We open up at 8, and then we do breakfast as far as rolls and coffee and all that goes.
Okay.
We have different coffee clutches that come in, so
Okay.
we do provide for them.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying we need to take this and look at it a little closer.
I understand.
From an administrative standpoint, commission standpoint, I don't know how that's going to be perceived by the public and the private sector that is competing for that business.
Okay. Well, if it
Follow
comes
up
down,
on Commissioner Hendrickson's comments. Rosie, do you have a price set that you would charge them?
we actually work with Aladdin, and we came up with a price of $10 per plate. So I think that in the past, they were paying the $10 per plate, so we're right exactly as what the same was. But working out a contract with they're still actively trying to work out a contract with their old place that they were at. So
Did you say $10?
$10, yeah.
You answered basically my question. I just didn't want it to be a taxpayer subsidized price when they're competing with somebody else. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments?
If they choose us, I'll come back.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2.
Livestock and Expo Improvement Update, Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator, and David Flaherty, the second Livestock and Expo Director.
Good morning, Phil. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning again, Commissioners. So, as your commission is well aware, we have entered into a long-term lease for the Expo Center site that is contingent upon the county making certain improvements to that site over the next 5 years. And we have also entered into an agreement with Hutton Construction to assist us with project management of that 5-year plan. And I'd planned to introduce Justin, but it seems like several of you already know him. So we have been working with Hutton to develop 5-year phasing, and we had a plan, and then it was pointed out that there are a couple improvements on here that are slated for the first year that actually don't make sense until we decide whether we're going to construct the warm-up arena. And so we worked with Hutton again to modify the plans so that we would move those further out and then substitute new work for the first year. So I'll ask Brad to bring up the year one plan. There we go. So the total amount of the budget price is about $1.9 million. And this phase shows spending just under $650,000 in fiscal year, calendar year 2021. And if you just scroll up, Brad, so this talks about each of the items that we plan to do, some overall site work. You'll notice kind of at the top there, survey and civil consultant fees. And that item will actually be coming back to the commission next Tuesday in the form of an RFA. Hutton has solicited some bids from different civil consultants to get that work kicked off, and we have a recommendation that we'll be bringing to the commission. Then, as Brad keeps scrolling, we've got work slated for Kenwood Hall, Ag Hall, 4-H, keep on going, Barn 1, and then the Greeley Avenue intersection. So I've taken Barns 5 and 6 and moved them later in the process. So Dave, I'll let you comment on any of the things that you think are critical for phase one.
I think as far as phase one, I think we're on the right steps of everything. Ag Hall is getting the windows and stuff done. I think that's going to show a big improvement since we did take Barns 3 and 5 out of the scope for now.
Okay. So then, Brad, if you want to flip to phase 2 there. Next, yeah, okay. So this would be for 2022, and we're looking at about $178,000 in expenditures next year, including lighting upgrades and more improvements to Ag Hall, Barn 1. Go ahead and scroll up. And potentially some electrical for those other barns. But I think the key thing for next year is making a go, no-go decision on whether we want to include the warm-up arena. That is probably our biggest item that we'll be bringing back to your commission for next year, is that decision point, which will then govern potential improvements to 3, 5, and 6. Anything on that, Dave? Okay. So Brad, then flipping on to phase 3. So we're looking again at a rather large expenditure in phase 3, tune of $700,000. We've sort of, as David mentioned, sort of front-loaded some of the important work in Ag Hall. So in 2023, we'll be looking more at Kenwood and some of the other structures. So go ahead and scroll up, Brad. Or down, however, there we go. 4-H, and then the other barns, improvements there. again, subject to the decision-making process on whether we're going to retain those barns. One of the things that we talked about is we put a lot of the improvements to Barn 2 further out in the process, even though those are relatively easy to sort of knock out. We moved those out a little ways because the future of Barn 2 sort of depends upon ultimate use by the Fair Board and whether they're going to continue to go ahead and do the fair at the site or whether they might look at relocating. And so if they do ultimately look at relocating, that kind of changes potential uses of Barn 2. So we didn't want to invest a lot in Barn 2 up front and give the Fair Board time to come to that conclusion. Anything else on Phase 3 you want to chime in there, David?
Nope, I'm good on Phase 3.
Okay. And then, Brad, if you want to flip over to Phase 4. Yeah, so you'll notice that this is sort of a peaks and valleys kind of a thing where we've kind of got more expenses in years 1, 3, and 5, and then a little bit less in years 2 and 4. And we think that will provide us with some opportunity to then take a little bit of time out and make some decisions as well. But probably the biggest piece for the 4th year is the remodeling of the office building. And then flip over to Phase 5 there, Brad. So then our final year, we're looking at that Barn 2 work that I mentioned, and then just sort of buttoning up everything. One of the other decision points that will be coming in relatively short order this year is the color scheme. As you know, the city of Salina had some concerns about making sure that the colors on the campus were complementary to the colors at Tony's Pizza Event Center. And so Hutton has proposed, they have a color specialist on board. I'm not sure what her official title is, but somebody who does design sort of work for a living, and so has given us kind of I'll call it a mood board of different options for doors and sorts of things, and has picked some colors that are not the colors of TPEC, but are in that same sort of color family. And so we're still nailing that down. Once we have a final recommendation on what that looks like, what we're going to try and do is do some blanking on the word, but the Photoshop. Thank you. That's what I was searching for. Some Photoshop images of the different buildings with those colors, and then bring them to the commission so you can see them, and then also take them to the city of Salina to make sure that they are on board with that. So that's sort of the plan as we have identified it for now. That's all within this 5-year budget scope that had been previously identified between our budget process and former director Rick Lamer. So I think we're very comfortable moving forward in this, not asking for any sort of decision from the commission today, but open to feedback from the commissioners about what you like or don't like about this plan. Then we can go and modify it. And as I said, we plan to be back next Tuesday with an RFA on that civil piece. So, David, any other questions? Otherwise, or comments? Otherwise, we'll turn it back to the commission.
Nope, I'm good for this one.
Okay, and just for my understanding, Phase 2 is going to be the warm-up arena, which will be 2022 proposed construction.
We would anticipate bringing you all in 2022 a decision on whether you want to proceed forward with the warm-up arena. I'm not saying that construction of the warm-up arena would be in 2022, but we would make that decision in 2022 with a view to, integrating that into the construction over the next year or so after that.
I believe the county did spend quite a bit of money in regards to the architectural plans from Kayla Audi, and those are in our possession now, so, for cost estimates, so.
Right.
That'll work, thank you.
I didn't think that a warm-up arena has ever been in our plans with this.
So that's one of the things that staff really wants you all to vote on at some point, because I think there is a difference of opinion on the board in terms of the desire for that. So that's
Irregardless of that, I mean, it was never in the proposal that we went on this improvement with the city, that the things that we were proposing and the things that they were asking, the warm-up arena was never in that conversation.
So that's correct. The warm-up arena is not something that the city of Salina made a condition of the lease, but we did in that lease reserve the right to make additional improvements on the property as your board sees fit. So really, much of what we have identified in years 2 and 4 was not on the city's list. For example, the improvements to the office building were not something that the city was particularly concerned about, but those are some things that David and his staff feel are critical, and so we wanted to integrate that in. But you're correct, Commissioner Vidrickson, that in terms of the budget for that, and Commissioner White is right, we do have some estimates, few years old at this point, but we do have some estimates for various costs, but that was not included budgetarily in this. We did, you will recall, provide for that in our scope of work with Hutton, that it's not within their sort of base scope of work, but we can add additional items to that scope of work with them over this 5-year period, and they would bill us for those as a percentage of the cost. So we have not budgeted for it at this point, but we have been keeping it in mind the entire time.
So this $1.8 million, because I've only got paperwork on Phase 1 and Phase 3, this $1.8 million, that is what we have budgeted. That's an estimate on the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 phases?
Yeah. Yes.
And my next question would be, as far as the line item, I mean, I'm just looking at, I'll just go to the very first one that is on my Phase 3, 8 windows for $7,000 to be covered. Will we go out for bids on this type of thing, or is this awarded to Hutton as the project manager? How are we going to, get to the bottom of that?
Yes, so Hutton is working with us. I don't want to speak for Hutton, but I don't think they regularly install windows. So there are all these different pieces of work, like the civil work, where they're serving as the project manager. They're helping us take bids, and then we'll bring those back to the commission for.
So the possibility exists then that Hutton would be a bidder on certain projects? Is that safe to say or not, or you might go to the.
Let Justin come up. I will say there is work that we do plan on doing in-house. There are a couple things that are identified, like some painting pieces that David feels like he can accomplish with his staff. And so it's going to be a mixture of, sort of all hands on deck to get this accomplished over a 5-year period. But if you want to address the question about whether Hutton plans to bid on any of the work.
Well, let me also say that I'm probably putting the cart before the horse a little bit here, because but I'm still trying to determine how we're going to go about that.
Justin May with Hutton. As you know, Hutton is a general contractor, and we have a design team with architects. What we're proposing is for each project, is bid them out to multiple contractors and be a project manager and a design consultant. If Hutton can provide services, they will then provide a price to choose from. So whether it's, so you just don't see one price. You know, if the same company can do it, then we'll get bids from them as well. So we can be transparent. If that.
Justin, you might stay up there for just a second. I have two questions. First, we talked just real quickly on a warm-up arena. I believe that there was a segment of the private people here in Saline County who had an interest in it and who maybe showed some way of coming up with some funds. I would encourage our staff to investigate that and find out if that interest is still there. And secondly, going through this, and maybe this isn't, these different items aren't finite yet, but one thing the city was, I thought, pretty adamant with was the openings in the barns, wanting some windows or some coverings or some shading or something. Am I missing that? Is that in this
Was it
workup?
barn 2 of shading that?
Well,
Yeah, barn 2, there is, and we actually talked about this last week. There are a couple different options for how that could potentially be enclosed. I think that was the biggest one that I recall from the city's list. They did also want some improvements to the other the 3, 5, and 6, which those improvements in terms of new roofing and railings and that sort of thing are included. I don't think we had screening identified for those, though.
Oh, yeah, not on those, the barns 3, 5, and 6, I don't think. No,
Right.
There was no screening on those.
Well,
The lower part.
I'm sure you've been working off of their to-do list and have built this around that. So if we're meeting their expectations, fine. I just knew that.
Yeah, and we, as I said, Commissioner, we are going to run this back by them as well. We wanted, obviously, wanted this body to be comfortable with the plan first, but we do plan on presenting it to the city as well at some point, just to make sure that we're meeting their expectations. Yeah, absolutely.
And I just have a couple quick questions. What is the barn when you first drive in off of by Waters True Value? What's that barn right there that has all the open, that you store stuff in?
Barn 2.
That's barn 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is the one that I think was this. Okay. And the other thing is I noticed in a lot of this is that there's a lot of concrete sidewalks and stuff and to be done really at an early stage here. And I look at it as like when they talk about new sidewalks all around the perimeter by the roadway, is that talking about on the south side also of all these barns where, I mean, where's all the, I'd hate to see some sidewalk stuff or concrete work be done and then at a later date, we have to tear it up or all the concrete trucks and everything running over it are going to break it all up.
The sidewalks are primarily on the northwest side, the sort of the side facing Tony's Pizza Event Center. There is some concrete work on the south, but it is more in the form of the loading dock and getting that to be more of a more drivable surface, I guess we would say.
Okay.
Am I capturing that correctly?
Correct. Basically, so the sand's not washing out into the street.
Okay. But it just seemed like everywhere I read is that there was
there is
sidewalks being done, and I'm
there is a lot of concrete and sidewalk work very early. You're correct, Mr. Chair. Yes.
And we have worked with these phases to make sure that, we're not putting concrete where we've got a heavy machinery on it. So we'll still kind of tweak some of that, but yeah, we've thought that through
Oh, I'm
too.
sure,
So
yeah, okay. All right.
One more question from me. The length of time, the 5-year is our length of time to get this completed, Phil, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we committed to in our lease. Yep.
And do we anticipate that shouldn't be a problem, I wouldn't think, based on what you're doing here, and may even come before that time?
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of discussion about that. We're not sure that it will actually take 5 years to complete all of this work. If your commission is comfortable with that, and that was one of the things that, that we wanted as part of the conversation, is if you all are comfortable, we may try and squeeze it into fewer years, just in terms of having better bid packages for contractors. But since we had 5 years, we wanted to show you a 5-year plan.
Sure. Well, knowing it's contingent upon the budget somewhat too. Knowing full well what we have already budgeted for that project, and if we continue to go at that pace, we're going to be able to step up in terms of time if we so desire. Financially, we're going to be able to do that. It looks to me like. So.
Yeah, from a financial standpoint, there's actually no reason we couldn't pay for it all this year.
And I think in the early negotiations with the city, the 5 years was something that they offered us, and we knew full well that we would be able to accomplish what they were asking within that 5 years. So it became a moot point as far as something we couldn't handle. So quicker the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, well, we can do that.
No, I'm just one guy. The others might not feel that way, but, I know the city, I've already received calls from various city commissioners wanting to know when we're going to get started, and, knowing full well that this was in the works, and I think that'll be music to their ears, and they're going to be a lot more agreeable with us on lots of fronts. If the quicker we get this done, the better off it's going to be. The more it's going to work into their major master plan for the park over there, and whatever that may be, and we'll do our part.
Yeah, I think we're very excited about getting this started. I know David and his staff are excited about the possibilities, and I think Hutton's raring to go too. So we certainly anticipate visible improvements coming in the next 2 to 3 months here.
Yep. Yeah, the civil's a big part, since there is a lot of concrete work. So that's one thing we're ready to get going on. So.
Well, and another thing that we might think about from that standpoint, there is a lot of work on the books around here, not from Saline County Commission standpoint, but from the private sector that's going to require lots of concrete, lots of laborers and so forth. So the quicker we get our foot in the door and get our projects going, the quicker we'll be able to handle it without getting delayed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, for the board's benefit, over at least last 30 years, there's always been some type of an expo improvement committee. And even with our present or previous directors, number one wish for all the people using our venue there was warm-up arena. Number one improvement that would enhance that area. So just FYI.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Any other comments?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jessen. Thank you, Phil. Any other comments? Okay. Item 3, County Administrator's Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, County Administrator Philip Smith-Haynes. 3 items to update the commission on this morning regarding the jail. The biggest thing lately has been working with the city and the item that you approved earlier. So we will continue to monitor next Monday and make sure that second readings go off without a hitch. We'll also be filing the tax exemption certificate on the property once we have the closing documents, so I'll need the chair's signature on that. And our architects will be back tomorrow afternoon for more design work, so we are continuing to make progress there. Second item, the ARC clerk and commission office design. The staff met with the architects yesterday, and the architects will be incorporating that feedback and getting back to myself and Clerk Jamie Doss next week, and we will have something for the commissioners to take a look at very soon. The third item that I had on my list for today was the American Rescue Plan, and I will characterize that as Hope Springs Eternal. I keep putting this on every week thinking I'm going to have something to report to you, and I consistently do not, because there's nothing new out of Washington, D.C. So instead, item 3 today is going to be Salina Media Connection. The city of Salina has experienced some issues with broadcasts of their commission meetings. You know, occasionally I will say that we have had glitches with our broadcasts, but they've been, I think, relatively infrequent and minor for the county commission meetings. The city seems to have experienced greater difficulties, and so the city took proposals from folks to provide meeting broadcast services. Last night at the city commission meeting, the commissioners voted 3-1 to bring the video production for their meetings in-house. So I wanted your commission to be aware of that, because I'm not sure what that means for us, right? I assume that that is going to have a significant impact on the broadcasts of our meetings. I don't know whether Salina Media Connection will continue to be in a position to support that, or whether we'll be looking at contracting with the city to do that, or how that's all going to pan out. But we will be working with the city to make sure that we're in the loop on what their plans are and what our options are. So I just wanted to mention that as something that's worth keeping in mind as we move into the budget process. Next month, outside agencies will be coming before your commission for funding requests, and I know that Salina Media Connection plans to be one of those folks who's coming for their annual request. So just, again, lots of unknowns on that, but wanted to make sure that the commission was aware that that was going on. So that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments? Questions? Any commissioner comments?
Well, I attended the Airport Authority meeting last week via Zoom. A couple of the highlights that came out of that meeting for me anyway were the number one, that they're going to build a new 5-plane hangar to accommodate private citizens, smaller, lighter aircraft. And as soon as it was signed, I think they had already leased 2 or 3 of the 5 spaces, so that's a pretty good deal. They also made light of the fact that fares from Salina, Kansas, and they used Los Angeles, I believe it was, for an example. You can fly from Salina to Los Angeles with 1 stop in Denver, cheaper than you can fly from Manhattan, Kansas City, Wichita, or any of the surrounding areas. Round trip flight is, I can't recall now, but it was less than $300. So they're really working well with United and getting the fares from Salina. And they're going to soon have another flight, I think, to nonstop to Chicago. They have one currently. They had two before COVID started, and they're going to get a second one going here as quickly as possible. So good things out at the airport. Lots of activity with the Schwann's and Tony's Pizza plant that's enormous, big, and lots of stuff going on at the Airport Authority.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I guess as everybody heard this morning, this I lost it here. NHA, National Heritage Area. I would like the board, possibly next week, if we can get it put together, to have a short presentation on it. I don't quite understand all the internal workings of it, but we did receive a packet up in our mailbox. I don't know if you've all had a copy to read it, but it's real informative, and basically I believe our surrounding counties have already passed resolutions in opposition to this, and I know the Kansas Livestock Association's involved in opposition. Town hall meetings, as Norman mentioned, been all over the place. Unfortunately, I have not got to attend those, but I've had a lot of emails and phone calls regarding this, and something the board needs to look at.
Okay. See if we can have our staff maybe find something out about that, bring it to us.
We can certainly do that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Any announcements? Seeing none or hearing none, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.